I think that it helps people to feel those things and like to believe in those things, and that one in particular, it's like it's comforting to think that people who have passed before you are helping you along your way.
Mm, absolutely. So we can all feel the meaningfulness of each person's life, and we all have the experience of focusing on and honoring and respecting the meaningful life of the person who has passed. And I feel like these songs kind of guide us into that state, which, as humans, there's not very much resistance to that. We're drawn to connection. And then I just love that at that moment, once we're there and there's that kind of potency, the casualness of, there's a coliseum of spirit behind you. Like, some people might, acknowledge it as that, or maybe that might just be considered kind of metaphorical language to describe something which is definitely emotionally felt.
Yes. And that was actually another interview I did with a guy named Lee from Chase on the Lake, which is a haunted hotel or whatever. And I it started off where he's talking about ghosts in a bowling alley, and then all of a sudden we like get, it just takes a real like sharp dive into like, why do you believe in this stuff, or like what is it, you know? And he said he used to be a pastor, he used to have all these experiences, and at one point he stops and he's like, is it, he's like, we, when we die we leave our bodies, but he's like, we experience these great moments of joy and these great, sometimes our heart breaks. And then he says, is this it? Is that it then? Is this, I mean, he's like, how is that? I don't think that's possible. And so I was talking to somebody about it because I had them listen to it. And they were like, what does that mean exactly? And I'm like, I think it, in my mind, that part means that, like, our spirit, like that stuff inside of you, is, that's kind of like your spirit. That's what moves on, is those experiences. And that's, I think that that's kind of the essence of all of it, really. I guess the whole being album is that. But I liked that he attributed it to like the emotional states. I think,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean, because I feel like that's the first way you experience something like that. Is like it's an emotional state. It's
Totally.
like,
Yeah. Yeah. So emotional states are significant in She Said, in the song She Said, insofar as open your eyes because this world's getting stranger. You got to let go of fear and understand your anger. And I think, and understand your anger is interesting, just on the back of what you were just saying, kind of harnessing that energy, the energy of anger. I mean, for me, I feel like anger is so related to assertiveness.
yeah, I agree with that. And like, that's not, I don't think that's appropriate.
Right. Well, I mean, we can, if there's enough kind of awareness, then what could be like my anger, insofar as I don't understand my anger, it can overcome me and I can lose myself to it. But if I understand that my anger relates to the need to assert myself and respect a sense of violation of boundaries. And okay, that is what the anger is, a messenger to me that something isn't right, that there's a lack of respect of boundaries. And then if I can feel into that and then act, not in with understanding that.
Yeah.
I feel like
Reacting,
right,
without reaction, like more so like being able to transform it.
the alchemy of and with anger in particular, you know, an alternative obviously could be recognize that's anger, and we don't like anger, and we also fear is bad. Don't feel fear. Anger's bad. Don't feel anger. Instead of that, there's this kind of call to awareness and to feel, not to bottle up.
Yeah, don't hold it. Yeah, definitely don't hold that, because I don't think that. I think you have to go through it though.
Totally. So how does this advice here about kind of emotional agility, perhaps, in that lyric, how does that relate to the record as a whole, and how you and the
That
role of
song is
emotion?
not on this record. That's an older song.
Okay.
Did I give you that song?
I think it maybe.
It was on my Spotify.
Yeah,
Definitely.
maybe the Spotify.
But
kind
that's
of just
that's on an older album. But I don't mind talking about those though, because nobody listened to them. There's
Okay.
2 of them out there, so yeah. But I mean,
So
yeah,
which
all of
album
my
is
stuff
She
is
Set
kind
On?
of, huh?
Which album is She Set On?
That's on. I think that's on Trouble. So that's my
Yes.
second. That was my solo album.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, but I think a lot of my, I guess, work is in that area of just being able to, or healing. I mean,
Yes.
just in general. And I think that's what's interesting about the newer one is that, or the newest, is that ultimately it's about healing that stuff. You know what I mean? And feeling like you can even after people are gone.
Yes.
That you can there's still, or there's a way to be in contact with them, and there's a way to, and maybe it's not that they're like another entity or something. It's that they're there in your perception and in your head, and they live there, like we all live. What's that thing? If a tree falls in the woods and nobody's around to hear it, does it make a sound? I remember that, Confucius, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned that from The Simpsons, by the way. I'm not a real
Well, we can
reader,
learn a lot from the
but
Simpsons.
I actually read a lot. But anyway, but it's like if a human exists and they're not observed, do they exist? And it's like we need each other like that. You know what I mean? To be validated, and even if people aren't necessarily here physically, they're validated by us.
Yes. I think that this all relates to the single Infinite.
I love that one.
Me too.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
To be honest.
My love for you, it is infinite, but so is the pain,
The thought
of losing you
yeah.
again. So all of that was coming to mind to me when you were discussing connection, and I think you were referring to the concern, fear of losing connection.
Yeah. That song in particular, because of I don't know if the interview part of it, because that's the interview with Liz. And
I haven't heard
the interview
component
portions.
yet. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think I'm happy I kind of left that out, because I think that one's one of the more interesting ones, because that one is definitely about a reincarnation story. And so yeah, and so I've had this idea of a music video that I'd love to do, where they're chasing each other through time, and one of them is trying to avoid the inevitable, which is that they're gonna die together, or that they have died in a past life together, and so they're trying to they continue on, but they try to avoid the pain of it. The interview kind of goes as she's talking about how she's in Ireland. She was doing her literature degree stuff. She did a study abroad, and she was in this dormitory, an old place, and she sees this handsome man at the end of her bed, and she's like, it doesn't feel like a bad energy and whatever. And then she's like, and he's like, my love, we're to be married tomorrow. What are all these people doing at our house?
Mm.
And then that's the thing. She goes, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're dead. and
As
and
I can imagine.
yeah, and then she said that
Ruby
like
doing that.
it was a flash of light and he was gone. But that's kind of the idea. Like she said that like she saw blood trickling down, and then she got this like kind of impressions in her head about the fact that they had died together of yellow fever. So it was like this old story, you
Wow.
know. That was, yeah, I like that one a lot.
So we have this interview with Ruby Blue, Red Eye
Ruby,
Ruby.
yes.
Yep. And that is there's this kind of reincarnation focus in the in in the interview. You just kind of summarize the story. What is the relationship between that interview and story and the song Infinite? Did the song Infinite kind of emerge inspired by Ruby's story?
Yeah, well, I have to admit that I wrote like that chorus through it, like
The
a
bit that I
song.
quoted
Yeah, like the
already.
chorus
That
part.
was there.
But yeah, the I think the verses are here you are, here we are back to square one again.
In this prison cell.
In this prison cell, are we lovers? Are we friends? So there's also that portion of it where it is kind of like a love song in a way.
Yeah. But but the uncertainty there, and
I think that's from the story.
that's from the
That's
story.
from the story. Like,
we're
who are
related.
you? What
I
do you
feel the connection.
yeah, I'm like,
But this is very strange.
this is very strange.
And sorry to tell you this.
We're in this prison. Are we lovers? Are we friends? It's actually something that she could have said to him. You know,
Yeah,
are we
absolutely.
lovers or are we friends? I don't really know here because this is weird. But then, then the here you are, just a haunting me again, which that's totally from the story.
Yep.
You're just a lonely memory, a figment in my head. That relates to possibility that you're maybe making it up because that's what everybody, some people are like, you're just crazy. You're making that stuff up. There's so much of that in the, in the paranormal world or whatever.
Oh, of course.
Skepticism.
Yeah. And then the next lyric is, I keep closing the door, but you keep opening it again. And I can feel like, so it's suddenly out of, so in this instance, Ruby's everyday sense of reality. This isn't the kind of thing that's happening all the time.
No, I don't think so. I hope not.
Not every day.
Not an everyday occurrence. Yeah.
So I think metaphorically, in my experience, when something out of the ordinary is happening, there's a part of me that wants to kind of close the door on it to obviously just continue going through my day with my normal sense of reality.
I agree, yes.
But in this instance, there's this sense that there's this other being that really that needs something, that needs to connect. And similar with the Grandma Anne and the rocking of the bed, and once she's acknowledged, thank you, then she's free too. There's a strong parallel, isn't there, between those two moments?
Yeah. I think that is also in part of the interview that Liz is talking about. She's talking about people who help people cross over.
Yes.
People who might be stuck here.
Yes.
In a spirit sense, and like how that's. I mean, there's people who do that. Like they really they believe in that, and they're like, well, this person is not leaving because they feel like something's unfinished or for whatever reason. And
psychopomp, is that the name for that?
Huh?
Psychopomp, or there's a term.
there's
There's a term for that process for helping.
Oh, yeah. I've always just heard it as crossing people over, but yeah, I think in that case, like, I like the idea that spirits might need help. You know what I mean? Just like we do or whatever.
Exactly.
Like that's why they're probably here. Either they're to help us or maybe the other way around.
Yeah, totally. And back to what you were quoting Ruby earlier with like the how was it phrased? Like there's this the trope,
The trope of the American Horror Story where all spirits are bad,
right?
and like,
Here to scare
or
humans
or scare
for the
humans.
fun of it or for the malevolence
Yeah,
of it. But
the demonic, and there's definitely parts of interviews that there's a song in the album about that as well, about like more demonic presences and things like that. But again, is it paranormal or is it just the way that the man Lee talks about it in the interview? He's talking about demons being, your addictions, your, he relates it more back to that. And then yeah. So there's a lot of that where it's like your inner demons, you know what I mean? Are we creating the experiences that we if we do have a paranormal experience or like see something, are we creating that experience or is it happening to us? I mean, and that's kind of like that's a hard question that's hard to answer.
on a relatable human level, I think like the question of is how can the need be met? What is the need? How can the need be met? Seems relevant.
Yes.
And true, if we're focused on healing, like a lot, conscious spiritual life will be, figuring out how to, what deep unmet needs one has as a person. It's just interesting to think, well, the same thing is true in these stories for the non-human
The
entities.
entities.
Yeah, there's a need for love and connection and for an unmet need to be met.
Yes.
And that's central to any healing journey.
Yeah.
So I just love how kind of, I feel like, what's the phrase? The Colosseum. I feel the Colosseum of spirit.
Colosseum of
that's
spirit.
That's the substance to it. It's like, okay, we're here. We can meet the need. We can establish the connection.
Yes.
And I feel like there's a lot of substance and potency.
There is a lot. There's so much there.
Yeah.
I could dive. I think I could probably extract a whole other album out of the things I've heard. It's very strange to me that people shared such personal things with me.
Yeah.
That was amazing. That's amazing to me.
Yeah.
That like people were like you open the door, and then all of a sudden it's just like people are willing to share these really kind of amazing things with you. I think that's
Right.
really cool about the whole thing.
I like
as well.
the opening the door metaphor, because I think it's kind of contagious in a way. So, because the reason I referred to the door again, or liking the door metaphor, is because we were just talking about, I try and close the door and you keep
Opening
trying to
it
open it
again.
But the different energy of like if you open the door and invite sharing,
Yes.
like all the doors open, and what's needed, like the energy moves around, and what's needed to meet the needs, something moves over here, something moves over there, and there's lots of connection. And
I also like the idea that I keep closing the door, and I like that. I had an experience myself that it wasn't necessarily paranormal, but like I got something called a clearing, like where somebody like it was like an energy clearing basically, and when that happened, they make you kind of repeat like mantra type things and stuff like that. And one of the things that I heard was, I'm a sovereign being. Nobody can enter my space without my permission.
yeah,
I had to say that over and over. And like, that's the kind of thing is like, what do you invite in? How much power do you have over that? And
quite a bit. How
yeah,
much
quite
power
a
do you
bit.
have?
I think so.
Yes.
And so,
Or total power, perhaps.
yeah. And that could
over
even
that one thing.
that could relate to even just like who are you inviting into your life, or but it could be what energy are you inviting into your life, or like
Yeah.
or, you know what I mean, and like how do you manage that, and how do you deal with it?
Absolutely.
But also with the door thing, like that's like I just like I go back to the music video because like it's just it's been such a strong story in my head. But like the idea that you're running from this inevitable thing, so you just keep on trying to, I guess it's just a denial, like that idea, like we're like, nope, we're not doing this. Nope, not
Yeah.
I'm not ready. I'm
So-
not ready to go yet.
Right, knowing when one needs to kind of forcefully close the door for one's own well-being and perhaps everyone's. So shifting register back to kind of the focus on emotional agility. If anyone was kind of thinking it was going too paranormal, then for me, what we're saying now, another kind of framework or lens that relates. We're talking about boundaries earlier, and we're kind of talking about energetic boundaries at the moment. But Brené Brown says that the most compassionate people are the most boundary people, and because it's difficult to have compassion and be loving to someone who one is being hurt by.
Yeah,
Or
extremely
impossible,
difficult.
perhaps. You know, if I'm
Impossible.
resentfully, if I don't have the door closed at the time when otherwise I'm gonna be really hurt, then then I can't bring love to
To
that
the situation,
person, even
yes.
if I kind of understand intellectually, oh, this person, has had this experience, and that explains it. Like I'm still on the receiving end of hurt.
Yes.
But then alternatively, if we keep on feeling back into this, I'm a sovereign being, I invite this, I don't invite that, and have that become our lived practice, sustained, then it is more possible to witness everything, with this compassion. And I think that's happening in Infinite, where there's we're kind of shifting between these modes. There's this ambivalence, where loving someone, wanting connection with someone, being fearful about the pain that would come with losing that connection again. And then, but you keep coming back to me, never lose track of me. You keep on finding me, keep on reminding me sweet things you said
and
and
the poems you read, and the reason that you're dead to me is because I have to move on.
Yeah. Right. The reason that you're dead to me is that I have to move on, I think is such an important lyric in the context of everything else that we've been saying. If we've got these two moments from the stories where like the person who is dead, there is this connection, and then they move on through the felt connection. This is an interesting kind of counterpoint to that, where someone who we could imagine, let's say that the person isn't dead, and it's just like two an
lovers
ex.
quarreling, or an
yeah,
ex.
exactly,
Yeah. That's what I kind of like about like writing the two sides of it, because it could go. You could definitely think of it as like a ghost story, or you could also think of it as just,
Yeah. Well, we have these
two
two.
lovers in the real world.
Totally, yeah. We have the two stories from the interviews that we've zoomed in on, and then I'll always remember now, Ruby. Like, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're dead. I think you're dead.
that's how it starts.
Right.
I hate to tell you this, but you're dead. And then it starts in, and then my other favorite, like towards like she's like, how do you tell somebody that they're dead? It's kind of that's in the middle of the
They
song.
don't have the tact.
Yes.
I haven't practiced tactfully
how do
sharing
you
that.
tactfully like? Excuse me, but that's I think that's like funny.
But yeah, just those two moments, that recurring moment, you're dead, and I'll get over the weirdness, and I will communicate with you, and then the spirit moves on. like in those two instances.
Yeah.
And then here, I have to have this door closed and kind of act as though you're dead so that I can move on. This is the closest at this moment in my healing
Yeah.
that I can get to
To- to get myself to get over
to
it.
moving on. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so playing with, okay, when do we need to have these doors closed? When miraculously can we like open the doors and then have the full processing and moving through without the need for boundaries. In the
Yeah.
meantime, yes, there's the need for boundaries.
Yes. Currently, the door needs to be closed.
Yeah.
Um,
So
another.
just on a human level, it completely resonates.
Yeah, I like that idea that there's. My dad always said that like the best songs are obviously like the most universal. Like when people hear them, it's like this. People can capture. Like, I guess my favorite song is always "Stand by Me." It's like like unbelievable. Like it gets you right there. And that's kind of my favorite thing is to kind of ride the line between explaining things and both ways. You know, you can do that, and I think people do that in like folklore too. It's like all the things. I don't know. There's my favorite podcast. It's called Lore. I don't know if you've ever. It's
gonna
like
check it out
riding the
now.
line between the historical and the paranormal. Anyway, I don't think that's exactly right, but
That could be our tag if if that's not taken for
yeah,
this interview.
yeah, for this interview. So, but yeah, he just always he talks about folklore in that way, where like how people came up with it. You know what I mean? And like how people used to explain away, like, you know, if something goes missing, like, oh, it was these fairies, you know, when in fact it's probably just one of the kids in the house or something, you know, like
Right.
moving stuff. But it it gives you a way to like put. I think that's what stories do. Is like give you a way to like put it outside of you so that you can like.
Yeah, and to work with with the energies, the emotions. You know, emotions are energies.
Definitely.
So the story, the idea of the Colosseum, all of this provides a way, tools for kind of being with and working with that energy, feeling that emotion, not denying that emotion.
Yes.
And then that's when the kind of the processing and the moving through can
Absolutely.
happen. And then when we add music into the mix, then I think you're guiding the listeners, us listeners, to being with these energies, or just these different emotional states where the healing can happen, where the alchemy, the transformation can happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah,
That's great.
that's what we're doing. So check out the record.
Yeah.
Go on these transformative journeys, courtesy of Amanda Standalone songs, and come and join us. If you're in the Twin Cities, come and join us at the 321 Club.
Yes, I think it's gonna be a later show. I have to be. I think it's 9 or 10 p.m.
Not past
So-
my bedtime, depending on the night.
Come on,
Yeah,
Simon.
I will be there.
All right, great.
I will be
That
there
would be
on the
awesome.
21st, Friday the 21st
I believe it's Friday. Yes.
of October.
And yes, thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome indeed.
Appreciate it. That was awesome.
Yeah,
Good
you're very
times.
welcome indeed.
I hope it all makes sense.
It's no, we don't want it all to make sense.
No, actually, that is the point. Some of it you just never gonna know.
The
And that's
mystery.
okay. That's my favorite stuff on earth is the things you can't know.
Yeah, it's intriguing.
It is
Intriguing enough.
definitely. Gets me.
Thank you thank you for journeying with us to this moment, and we'll see you at the 321 Club.
Thank
viewers, Amanda and I.
you. Come on out now.